You're listening to WEOP AM 730, the voice of inquiry. It's time for Echoes of Persuasion with your host, Colt Thornton.
History doesn't repeat word for word, but the melody always returns. You can hear it in sermons, in speeches, in chants from crowds convinced they were chosen to see what others could not. Every era has its prophets of hidden truth. The costumes change, the promises shift, but the performance, that stays eerily familiar. Good evening, I'm Colt Thornton, and you're listening to Echoes of Persuasion. Today, the pulpit isn't a revival tent or a wooden stage. It's the endless scroll of digital feeds, and the prophet doesn't raise their arms to the sky. They broadcast images, memes, futuristic graphics, polished visuals that feel less like arguments and more like revelations. The message isn't join a fringe belief. It's something far more seductive. You're glimpsing the future before the rest of humanity. This is the power of the narrative architect. They don't debate in the usual sense. They don't even try to persuade outright. Instead, they build worlds. Worlds of imagery and symbolism where belonging feels inevitable. Followers don't just agree, they move inside the story. And once you're living in the story, facts have a much harder time breaking through. Flat Earth's early wave was loud and chaotic. Webcam rants, sermon-style preachers, constant confrontation. The narrative architect takes a different path, calm, polished, deliberate. Every gesture suggests something larger than an argument, a glimpse of tomorrow. This isn't a debater, and it isn't really a teacher either. It's a visionary role, carefully constructed. The visuals borrow from science fiction and cyberpunk, cold digital interfaces, glowing grids, language pulled from the edges of philosophy and physics. Words like simulation, quantum, frequency, not to clarify, but to signal authority. This mask works because futurism carries weight. It promises escape. You're not joining an old debunked idea. You're being invited into what feels like the next stage of human evolution. When someone tells you the future is already here, and that you have been chosen to see it, the appeal isn't to evidence. It's to destiny. Belief isn't argued. It's staged. The narrative architect doesn't debate. They transmit. By their own admission, imagery is designed to strike before resistance can form. You don't read it, you feel it. The artwork isn't decoration, it's infrastructure. A shield protecting belief from criticism, and a sword cutting straight past skepticism. These visuals don't argue, they stage a reality. And once the stage is set, the audience isn't just looking at it, they're invited to step inside. One of the oldest tricks of persuasion is not to answer, but to ask. What if the world you see isn't what it seems? What if every image of Earth has been manufactured? What if the future you've been promised is a lie? At first glance, this feels like curiosity. But the function isn't dialogue, it's atmosphere. Mystery becomes authority. The fewer straight answers given, the more followers must rely on the one asking the questions to interpret reality. We've seen this before. Jim Jones promised a new society, a utopia apart from a corrupt world. David Koresh wrapped authority in riddles of scripture. Marshall Applewhite fused cosmic destiny with digital age anxiety. In every case, ambiguity wasn't weakness, it was control. So it is here. Claims shrouded in possibility, certainty implied, never stated. The leader appears humble for not claiming answers, yet defines every mystery. Strip away the polish, and what's left is a familiar rhetorical toolkit. False equivalence, placing speculative science beside pseudoscience as if they carried equal weight. Authority by association, borrowing language from legitimate fields to signal credibility without accountability. Narrative conflation, braiding spirituality, technology, and pseudoscience into a single, immersive worldview. Preemptive inoculation, training followers to treat criticism as proof of enlightenment rather than challenge. Each move shifts persuasion away from evidence and toward identity. Once belief becomes belonging, leaving feels like betrayal. It would be easy to dismiss all this as fringe theater. But history warns us otherwise. These tools aren't confined to flat Earth. They appear in politics, in wellness movements, in online spirituality, even in the marketing of technology. Whenever imagery stages reality, whenever ambiguity becomes authority, whenever belonging is promised to those who see through the lie, the architecture is the same. The narrative architect matters not because of their claims about the Earth, but because they demonstrate how persuasion evolves. The surface changes, the performance remains. Recognizing the pattern is the first defense. Once you see the architecture, you cannot unsee it. And once you know the mask, you are far less likely to mistake the performance for revelation. Join me as we continue this Masks of Persuasion series here on Echoes of Persuasion. And always remember, the echoes fade, but persuasion never sleeps.